Street Fighter League US is awful.
Dang.
I'm criticizing it because I love Capcom, I love Street Fighter, or otherwise I would not be doing this. It hurts to see something done in a way that I think will hurt everybody in the long term. Here's what I mean. Street Fighter League Japan cracked the code. And it makes me a little upset that the company that makes Street Fighter League Japan is also the same one that makes Street Fighter League US, but they're on completely different pages. First, there is no clear pipeline to new talent in Street Fighter League US. There used to be, right? There was the whole community vote, and then Capcom kind of fucked that up by screwing Amezi over. And I don't care. Yeah, you were there. What happened was, Street Fighter League Season 2, there was a huge community vote where 4 people who got the most votes from the community got to go to Street Fighter League US. Among those that were in the top 5 were this guy, Tommy Two-Step, Sherry Genix, Amezi, and Arturo. The voting window closed an hour before the supposed closing hour.
Yes.
So
yes, I was on the phone with Born Free when that happened.
And as of the closure, the top 4 were Sherry Genix, this guy, Tommy Two-Step, and Amezi. Arturo was 5th. Sure enough, comes Street Fighter League US time, and Arturo's there and Amezi is not.
Do you know what's really messed up that I never even thought about is who is going to bring a different audience, Arturo or Amezi?
Exactly. That was an issue then, right? The community voted. Amezi was number 4. They said, screw you, you're not a top player. They brought Arturo. It feels like Street Fighter League US this past season is in that exact same vein, where instead of being open to fresher faces, if you will, with fresh audiences and a fresh outlook on life, they literally went out of their way to get every other top player from around the world instead of getting local talent in the US. And we just saw the same people we always see do the same things that they always do. And this is no disrespect to the players. This is no disrespect to the production. At the end of the day, sure, they have to put on a show or whatever, but what's the point of just watching the same people that we always watch? What's the point of catering to the same 50 to 100 people, right? Because if you're catering to the same 50 to 100 people, the entire audience that you have and the players that are supporting this scene, because at the end of the day, if there weren't 7,000 players at EVO, Street Fighter 6 would not have been as big of a reception, right? If there aren't, like, you know, the Pop Monsters or everybody else traveling to tournaments to participate, everybody that goes 0-2, right? There's all of these people, and we can talk about level of play or whatever as much as we want, but if you're not catering to the actual FGC and are just catering to the top players, it's going to get to a point where things are going to be so top heavy that the community is going to stop supporting it. But you have all of these huge esports that are falling by the wayside because the people making the decisions at the top are A, being greedy, and B, are catering just to the top players instead of having a pipeline to have more players feed into this. Street Fighter League Japan does this so well, right? They have Shinobi, and they partner with a lot of the people who make this stuff happen. Shinobism, Momochi's school, I guess. I don't know what else to call it. A bunch of new faces are coming up from that. A new team that got announced this year, Crazy Raccoon, right? Of all the VTubers stuff. Like, there's a new team for that. So all of these schools, they're getting all of these all of this fresh talent, and they're showing off all of these people who are so good, but don't necessarily get the limelight. Street Fighter League US, it just feels like the same old thing. It felt like they didn't even cater to the US with Street Fighter League US because the broadcast time was so damn late. It was so difficult to watch. So how are we going to be able to enjoy the thing if they're airing it at like midnight?
We talked about Justin Wong earlier and how he's heavily on the grind, and he used to be a top player and being the best was his priority. But now making content seems to be his number one priority. So that makes me think if you can take the route to make content instead of just being good at the game, that is a very good route to take. And that makes me think of Street Fighter League. I think the question they have to ask themselves is, what do people want to see? Do they want to see high-level gameplay, or do they want to see, A little bit of little storylines, some more activities, some kind of different angle. Because I'm thinking more and more that if you're depending on your game being entertaining at a high level, you might that may not be the thing to bet on. I think you want a little bit more than that to keep your audiences retained. I think it's more, especially for me personally, it's more exciting to see somebody have that light bulb go off in the middle of a match where they're like, "Wow, I did that and it felt good. I made an improvement, and everyone can see it." I think that is a wonderful moment in fighting games. And if it's just only high level play, you're just looking for high level players, I guess, and those are a lot less than the casual audience.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There is a place for the high-level play, and that's what I believe Capcom Cup is for, right? Like, that's, like, the best of the best. They, all year long, it's not just one tournament or, like, one weekend. It's all year long. People have been grinding, and these are the people that came out on top. Now, let's see what happens when they play each other. But when you have something like Street Fighter League, where you're trying to make content out of it, you're trying to introduce people to the FGC, and you're introducing the FGC to people.
There's a lot more to it than being good at the game.
Yes. And that is, I think, the absolute thing that Street Fighter League US is missing, that Street Fighter League Japan has. I believe Street Fighter League Europe was also in the vein of Street Fighter League Japan, where they had teams, where they had like sponsored teams, and they had slots. And they plugged in a bunch of players, which, from my understanding, don't necessarily get the limelight, right? And you saw, like, Street Fighter League US, when it ended, like, the team that won, everybody was, like, so, like, ridiculously over the moon about it. And I feel like taking that away, like, taking the new blood aspect of it and just catering to the top players, like, you're losing out on a lot. We see that directly reflected in viewership.
No, you don't. So I'll contribute.
Street Fighter League Japan, extremely entertaining. You can see the viewership is very high. Street Fighter League US, there was a huge hunt on Twitch to show channels that are view botting. According to that data, I believe it was 78% of viewers in the Street Fighter League US viewers were not real.
I'm about to lose my Capcom Cup creator overlays.
This isn't your channel. This isn't your channel. This is my channel, and they didn't give me that. It's directly reflected. And the fact that they're trying to hide it makes me think it's even more disingenuous. We were talking about it being disingenuous before and how playing it up, blah, blah, blah. That is the kind of shit that is going to ruin Street Fighter League US, if it's not ruined already, right?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, we want them to win. We're not, like, cheering for this. We don't want this at all.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Like on their side, and nobody wants to. I don't want to talk about it either because I know my friends and important people who are working with them, their bags are getting affected by it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, people are smarter than we give them credit for. We are all smarter than we give ourselves credit for. You can tell when something is being faked or being played up and not what we're expecting. We can tell when something is not going so great, and we can tell when companies are just trying to pull the wool over our eyes. Doing this the way that they're doing this is, sure, it's going to give them a little bit of money and a little bit of short-term success. Long-term, it's going to crash just like everything else in esports has been. And it's because people at the top are making some decisions that are very questionable and are not in the interest of the Street Fighter League US, are not in the interest of Capcom, but are in the interest of this.
It reminds me of Helldivers. I know that's very odd comparison, but if you just make a good game, people gonna play it, and it's gonna be great. You just do something that you believe in, and then it's awesome.
And if you don't have something awesome, you have to pay for view bots. I say this again. I say this out of love. I love Street Fighter. I say I hate Street Fighter 6, but I played it for like 5 hours a day, which is like way more than I played any other game. The fact that I'm doing this show is proof that I like Street Fighter, and proof that I love the FGC, and proof that I want all this shit to go well. The entire production of it, everybody involved with it, is getting hurt by this. Or not getting hurt, but going to get hurt by this when it eventually crashes. And I do not want to see that. So that's why I'm being extremely critical about it. Any final thoughts?
Sometimes I don't know if it's like yelling at the clouds.
It feels like it, right?
Sometimes I feel like it's just unlucky. Like maybe they do have a good plan and it could have been successful, but one thing leads to another. Maybe it just doesn't work out the way they thought.
Yeah. Either way,
I mean, as long as they can put another quarter in the machine and try it again, and maybe they'll get some feedback. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I had a lot of inside baseball, and there's a lot of things that I feel like if they don't, how much of an impact can you have, really?
Yeah. I just don't want to see this fall apart.